Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Do Up Fiction Today podcast. I'm here with Olly Wrinch. Hello, Olly.
Hello. Good to be
Hello,
here.
man. It's good to have you here. So talk to me, because we chatted briefly before I hit record about all the things that you do. But Olly, you are a sleep optimization coach and stress management coach. And before I dive into all of the nitty gritty of what that is, because we'll kind of talk about it and it'll authentically come out there, what would you say if someone was like, hey, Olly, what is a stress management and sleep optimization coach?
Oh, well, I suppose the obvious answer would be helping people to feel less stressed. But on a deeper level, I guess the goal really is to create a calm, confident, and focused mind.
Mm.
And so a lot of the people that I work with um, just are struggling a lot with sort of a restless mind, constantly on the go, not able to switch off, and it leads to burnout. They're not performing at the level they want to. It's holding them back. So it's really just about learning how to manage the mind, and also the sleep part of it comes into that because, as I learned through my journey, you just cannot separate sort of mental and physical health, and so the two are absolutely intertwined. And often people who are struggling with sleep, people who are struggling with stress, struggle with sleep because it's one of the things that will keep you up at night.
Yeah. So before we get super into it, can you talk to me? Because when we previously chatted before, I got to hear all of the amazing adventures that have led you here to this profession where you are today. Can we roll it back and can you talk to me about some of the past experiences that have led you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, sport has always been a major part of my life, and has definitely been a big part of this journey. Um, growing up was sort of all the normal sports. Played a lot of football. Played football for the northwest of England. Played county tennis. Got a sports scholarship. Then at the 16, left home in the UK and moved to Canada, where I started competing in big mountain skiing. Started off as a mountain bike guide in the summer, and then managed to get sponsored at mountain biking. And then just after a few too many injuries, as I was saying to you before, ended up sort of moving away from sport and getting into business, where I started a water sports business because that's what I knew. And then, that's kind of what led me into where I am now.
Mm-hmm. So going back, because I had some questions. So big at wasn't it you left at a younger age, around 16, to go big mountain skiing? So what is big mountain skiing? I think it's the name may sound like say what it is, but what exactly, how adventurous are these sports are we talking about?
So big mountain skiing is also like free ride skiing, also it's called. Basically, you have a start gate at the top of a mountain and a finish gate at the bottom or of a piece of a mountain. And you just get judged for how big a cliffs you hit, like how technical lines you ski. So it's not like there's a course or there's structure to it. It's just there's a part of the mountain, and it's just you have free reign to go nuts and show off.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that sounds intense. And so you, so you started with big mountain skiing, and then at a younger age, and then what happened with that to kind of pivot to you mentioned mountain biking?
Yes, I mean, I moved, like I said, moved to Canada when I was 16, and it's where I started. I had very little prior experience in skiing. Growing up, we go to the Alps sort of once a year and ski for a week. So I was very much like, I came over very much with that European style skiing of like skis together, and everyone kind of laughed at me. And in the first competition, I didn't even qualify through the first round. And as somebody who has always been good at sport and just that's be a part of who I am, that really pissed me off. So obviously went and did loads of training, and then ended up in my second season qualifying for the Junior North American Free Ski Finals. Sorry, I forgot where you started with the question.
No, that was it. Because I mean, from when we chatted prior, you talked about how you were so sport was such an integral part of your life, and you live on a little bit more of the adventure side of sports. So you kind of just went for it. You started at 16. Okay, not what I'm.
Sports always been a major part of my life, and I think as I got older, I gravitated more towards extreme sports rather than team sports, where I think it has got to a point in football where people were taking it so seriously, and it was all like everyone wanted the glory and just blame you if things went wrong. And I wasn't enjoying that environment as much. Whereas I found
Mm.
extreme sports is different because you're not compete even though you are competing, you're competing against your friends, and when you're not competing you're all like best mates, so it's a very different atmosphere, and everyone's pushing each other, and like everyone's celebrating other people when they do well, rather than being like, oh no, I need to beat you. So I just preferred that kind of environment, and I think I excelled at. I was never the most talented person, but I made up for that with just balls to do things that other
To,
people wouldn't.
to do some scary stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So from mountain skiing, big mountain skiing, you then
yeah.
jumped into mountain biking.
Yeah, so I'd done a little bit of mountain biking prior. I think I started when I was probably 15 with just a guy that I was sat next to in maths class. We were like the only two people that did extreme. I was big into skateboarding at the time, and he was into mountain biking, and we were the only two people that did extreme sports. So we kind of bonded, and he took me mountain biking. And then my plan was just to sort of compete in skiing in the winter, and then just become a mountain bike guide just to make money in the summer. And then I managed to get some pictures in Dirt magazine, which at the time was the biggest sort of mountain bike magazine, and then I kind of saw opportunities from there to start pursuing sponsorship, and so I thought, okay, maybe I'll try and have a crack at this as well. And that was when I got a little bit too carried away, and the injuries became a little bit too frequent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Man, I did some research on some of the jumps that you were doing.
yeah,
They're not like little kitty jumps. Like you're
yeah,
you're freaking
yeah,
high. You're jumping.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. And so from there, that was when, after the injuries, you were, okay, we need to step away just because I'm not being safe. And that
Yeah.
was what led you to your business, starting your business?
Yeah, so I guess to bring it back a little bit, it was I mean, the year I was supposed to be going senior, so when I turned 19, I like blew out my knee, tore my ACL, did damage the cartilage, so missed that ski season. Obviously had a long recovery from that, and then came back that summer, and then I think that summer like broke my collarbone, and then had internal bleeding, and then it then was out for a while, and then the next one, it was I just had one of those big jumps on a big canyon gap, and I wasn't in a great place mentally, and I think because sport was where I got my validation, if I was like struggling a little bit with just how I felt about myself, I would go and do something crazy in order to get the validation, and I think that was what made me realize like the time that I did this jump, like everything was wrong about the situation. I just shouldn't have done it, and I was taking. It wasn't that I couldn't do the things that I was trying to do. I was just pushing I was taking stupid risks that I didn't need to take, and I like woke up on the landing. Like the last thing I remember was like my. I don't know if you know much about mountain bikes. My suspension fully compressed, and then I just got kicked over the front, landed like head first on my shoulder, and just knocked myself out. And then when I woke up, couldn't breathe, couldn't move, and it took me a good 5 minutes before I could even wiggle my fingers, and it was enough time to be like, okay, like I thought I had that moment of like, oh, okay, I finally pushed it too far, and it was that realization of if I carry on, one day I'm not going to get lucky. And I don't know how I walked away from it, but it was if I carry on this way, one day I'm not going to, and so something had to change.
Yeah. Do you think, how long did it take you, if you don't mind me asking, to recognize that you were searching for validation by doing scary shit as an
Uh,
athlete?
Probably when I was, I mean, I've always struggled. Like I struggled a lot with my mental health growing up. Like I had a lot of like like I could be on top of the world, but then also struggling with wanting to end my own life. So it was, um, I knew I wasn't in a great place, and I knew sport made me feel good. Partly because it does make you feel good. There's lots of good aspects to it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it was the need to. I suppose when you're doing things that you don't necessarily want to do, but because you're chasing the
Right.
validation, that's the problem, and it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Wow, that's super informative and like very impressive. I mean, in the profession you are now, not really, but still for someone who's a muggle to hear like, yeah, I was searching for validation and I went and did this crazy stuff to make up for it. Like I think that could speak to a lot of people. Maybe not doing crazy jumps, but if it's I kind of feel that same way too with having to sign
Yeah,
up for a race. Like I need to validate myself.
100. I think anything that's competitive, whether it's getting into the best university or running a marathon or like whatever it is, it's important to ask ourselves why we're doing it. And for a lot of people, it is they're not doing it to become a better runner or to become fitter, or they're doing it for the medal. And it's if you like, what does that medal actually mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
we've all had that experience of you get it and then you don't feel any different about yourself. Like you feel good when everyone's praising you, and then the second that goes away, you're just like, oh,
Shit.
no different. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Like,
No, I know exactly
I
what you
still
mean.
struggle to get out of bed in the morning. I still have these problems that like I shouldn't have, and we beat ourselves up about. So it's
Yes, I had that realization after I did my 100 miler. I'm like,
wow, yeah, that's
it
it.
was a high. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it was like it was a low because it was like holy shit, I did all of that, and like yeah, I've got this crazy cool buckle, but I'm still
Yeah,
me, and that's okay. But it was you're not if you're not ready for it, it's not a prepared thing.
and 100 miler, that's brutal. That gives you a lot of time through the 100 miler to question
To
things.
question a lot of life choices. Yes.
Like, why am I
Yes.
here?
Exactly. What have I done? Um, so you mentioned talking and struggling a bit with your mental health, and then once you stopped sport, right? That was the thing that was kind of keeping you, I don't even know, maybe center, but more straight and kind of where you got your validation from. Can you talk to me about how, you started into your water sport business and how what that looked like for you and your next step?
Yeah, so it was not a didn't happen straight away. It was kind of um, for a little while. Yes, sport was who I was. So I didn't know. I knew that the next step was always. I'd always, from a young age, had entrepreneurial spirit and done entrepreneurial things, like through injuries and stuff. But like starting little, coming up with ideas, like bought a boat, fixed it up, um, and I knew that I was. I think because I struggled in school, and I never saw, okay, well, I'm gonna get a degree and then get a good job. That was just never going to be my path. It was always going to be you're going to have to figure it out for yourself. Um, so for a while it was okay. I knew I wanted to do business, but I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in sports still, and I sort of did a road trip. I knew that I spent a year in Spain with the idea of starting a mountain bike park in the south of Spain. I ended up doing like a few did a road trip from Canada down to Panama, just kind of looking at spots to like, okay, what might I want to do? Where might I want to be? Because at the time I didn't really have any intention of moving back to the UK. Um, and then yeah, moved to Spain, didn't really fit in there, and I'd spent some time in Newquay when I was younger. I'd come back from Canada for a little bit and ended up teaching surfing in Newquay. Had a friend living here, so I was like, all right, I'll go to Newquay with the intention of I'd done a lot of photography. So I was like, okay, I'll just do surf photography or something to start with. And when I was in New Zealand, I first did flyboarding, and I was like, oh,
Okay.
I should start this in Cornwall. And so that's what started it.
What's flyboarding?
Like so it's like a board that you stand on, and there's a hose that attaches to a jet ski, and so the water
Oh.
back of a jet ski comes through the board and then shoots you up into the air.
Okay, yes.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was the name for it. I always kind of like it looks kind of like a jetpack. So it's like
yes,
a,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
highly recommend
Okay.
it if you get a chance to have a go. It's so different to anything else.
Yeah, I definitely will. I've seen enough pictures of it for sure. I just didn't, well, learn something new every
Yeah.
day. So once kind of settled the concept of, okay, I'm going to start a water sport business. And the reason I'm asking all these questions, I want to paint the picture because when you and I talked, I was like, hey,
Mm.
there's a correlation here of how the people that you talk to and the clients that you're more specific are the people that you have been in the past. You were the athlete, you are the entrepreneur. So from there, you have your water sports business.
Mhm.
You're in Newquay.
Yeah.
What happens?
So my second year, COVID hit, which
Oh,
yeah, not ideal for a new business because you don't get any help. Um, and I I was I was struggling with networking, with approaching people, um, and so I started getting into personal development. And then when COVID hit and shut things down, I hit a bit of a low at one point where I remember like walking, like going to like trying to find a shop in this street, and just not being able to walk up to somebody to ask for directions, because I would get so anxious that I would just panic and not be able to do it, and ended up giving up. And it was taking me like days to approach people that I wanted to work with in order to ask them about like working together and collaborating and doing things. And I just, having not reached my potential in sport, which absolutely gutted me because of the how I was struggling to manage my emotions at times, and the effect that that was having on my performance. I was not going to let that affect me reach my potential in business. And so I was like, okay, this time I got to do something about it. And then I also like, when I got into it, I didn't want it to be in the past. I've kind of, when I've been in a bit of a low and I've been struggling, I'll do, you do a little bit just to get yourself up and like to a high enough level. And then you just slowly sort of slide down, and then it goes downhill again. And then it's like, okay, now do something again and go downhill. It's like, okay, no, this, I want to finally once and for all, like master this. So I guess it would, the goal for me at that point was really learning to master my emotions, because I think that was what was getting the better of me.
And when it, I want to say this, when you were learning more about, how to, not manage, but understanding more about, mental health, kind of your anxiety with talking to people, you were doing performance kind of coaching or learning about it, or
Yeah, at
not
that
yet?
point, I was just doing the water sports stuff. I was just doing it for myself to get into to help me with my own journey.
Uh-huh.
And then I think like as time went on, I got an opportunity to potentially work with homeless people and rehabilitating them. And I like straight away I was like, oh, that, yes, I'd love to do that. And I think that kind of lit the fire in me of, I've always loved helping people. I love the coaching in sports. And I particularly like, I've always loved helping people that really struggle, as opposed to being one of those, like, I don't just want the people who are really good. I enjoy taking people that are terrified and helping them to realize that they're capable of more than they see. Because when you show that to somebody, they walk away with just this unbelievable amount of energy, and they take that across into, wow, if I can achieve this here, maybe I can, go for that promotion, or, leave my job and do this. Or it just opens up the doors to, wow, maybe I'm capable of so much more. And so I think, yeah, when I like, it kind of hit like, as I was growing the business in that, like the water sports business, I was just going to be doing less and less of what I actually enjoyed, and it was just going to become about managing people. And so, yeah, then I discovered Tony Robbins along my journey. He's been a big mentor. I've done his coaching program, done a lot of his seminars, and yeah, I like saw that it was possible to be a coach without necessarily going and spending 8 years in school to become a sports psychologist, which I had considered, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to school for 8 years.
Yeah. So just you talk about an organic full circle moment here. Like you've touched so many, not personas, but you were the athlete who struggled with mental health
Yeah,
and anxiety. You were the business owner trying to navigate identity with not being in sport and now owning a business, going through COVID, recognizing some of your weaknesses, and then realizing, oh shit, like I could actually, how I've helped myself, I can help other people.
yeah. And I think the I can help other people came, like I've always wanted to help other people, but the more I help myself, it, I don't know, like in the past where I've kind of like made small progress, this just was a whole different level of like what I learned and how I managed to turn my life around. I would just felt so good all the time. I was like, okay, it's not just I want to help other people. I was like, people need to should know this. Like I like
Mm.
it's such easy stuff that can really change your life when you understand it.
Oh. So when you had that realization, was it just kind of like, okay, the water sports business, we're going to put that on the side. This is it. I'm moving forward. Like, was it pretty, like you mentioned, it being pretty crystal clear that kind of pivotal career change?
Yeah, I mean, I had so my in the second year of COVID, my insurance went bust, and it took me like the start of starting a business was not, oh, I'm going to start a business, let's crack on with it. I was trying like the first thing was trying to find insurance was an absolute nightmare for something that's in the air above
Mm.
water, being powered by a jet ski. It took me months. I was at the
Oh,
point of like almost giving up when finally somebody got back to me and said, "Okay, we found somebody." And then it was, "Okay, now go buy the gear, get like start build a website, get all of that." And I had about a month to do all that before opening it. Um, so
I didn't
what
even
it
think
like
of that.
when they went bust, it was okay. They'd found somebody else, but the safety protocols they wanted in place was just going to be so expensive, and so it was a decision of, okay, either I have to scale now in order to be able to afford this, expect the insurance, and all the safety stuff they want, and have more stuff. I need to have more things going on because they want like a safety person on the water, and so I needed to really expand. And I wasn't like at that point. Now I had this idea. I was like, okay, well, I'm not all in on this, so I'm going to go all in on this.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So the insurance companies, we can thank you for that little guiding light.
Yeah, we all. I think COVID changed all of us.
It
Some
did.
for the worse,
It
but yeah,
did.
it definitely reset things, change
Yeah.
things.
So thank you for going, answering all of those, background questions. Because when we chatted, it was really cool to see your story and how it truly was I started here, I learned all of this, and now we're right back to where I'm helping the people that I once was.
So what you're saying about sort of full circle, my intention when I got into it was always I wanted to work with athletes because I understand that life. I understand the mental health struggles that a lot of people have in that. It's like a lot of people that are attracted and succeed in there are often people who are struggling, which is what gives them the drive to push through so much pain. And I suppose the same with entrepreneurship. And I kind of fell into entrepreneurship because I was also trying to build a business. I was going to a lot of events, so I was surrounded by entrepreneurs. So they were just the ones that started asking for help. And then it's only recently this year actually that I managed to get in with Red Bull, which has been amazing.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's pretty exciting to work with because that was obviously in sport. That's always obviously the dream. So to now be working with some of the Red Bull athletes is amazing.
Okay, I didn't know that. Congratulations. That's awesome. That's super awesome. So, from your perspective, if these are more your types of clientele, is there a theme throughout those personas or people that you think would be more targeted to reach out to someone like yourself? Like, why? Yeah, I'll end the question there and see what you say.
I suppose first of all, age, because a lot of the older guys, business owners, are not going to get help in that department.
True.
Most of them are kind of 30s, and I think also a lot of the people that I work with have had entrepreneur customers. But there's a separation between the entrepreneurs and the athletes in terms of the stuff that they're dealing with. It's similar, but like just slight differences. With a lot of the entrepreneurs, it's kind of like business owners or company directors where they've had a huge amount of success, but they don't they're not confident that they've had a huge amount of success, and then they're generally around a lot of people that are older, and they have all of this like imposter syndrome. They're doubting themselves. For them, it's the responsibility and having to make all the decisions, whereas for the athletes, it's more they're on 2-year contracts. They're dealing with huge amounts of uncertainty. They could have a career a crash, an injury that could end their career at any point. So for them, they're dealing with a huge amount of uncertainty. But I think it all comes down to feeling okay about yourself. Like when you feel good enough in yourself, you don't need to achieve things. You don't need to prove things. You're like, the goal for me is becoming okay with what will be, and just genuinely
Mm.
okay with that, rather than I have to achieve this in order to be okay.
Oh, that's a money statement right there. That's
Yeah,
probably very freeing once you have that concept.
unbelievably. And I think that's the difference between having the confidence to do things that you're good at and just being able to take on any challenge because you're okay with failure. You're okay with
Hmm.
being as not being good enough, which is hard for all of our egos, especially people who have had success. And the more success you've had, the harder it becomes.
Yeah, that was really beautiful what you said earlier about removing the validation from your results and what will be will be. My God.
Hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's one of the first things that I did that I got actually from Tony Robbins, which was looking at one of the things. So when I first walked away from just sport, I was in a low place for a while, and I just
Yeah.
kind of numb for a while. And one of the things that I did through him was to look at, okay, well, what was it that sport gave me? And once you realize that, and then when I looked at that, it's like, okay, well, I mean, obviously love it. I enjoyed the sport, but it helped me to I was able to inspire and influence others in a positive way, and that gave me a lot of feel good about myself.
Hmm.
And once I realized that, it's like, okay, well, sport isn't the only way to achieve this. So now, once you realize, okay, once you realize what you really want underneath the thing you're chasing, like what that really gives you, there's actually way more options to achieve that, which means that, okay, if this one path doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. Because for a lot of us, we only see like, no, I have to achieve this to get there. And it's like, oh no, actually there's loads of other ways. And once you realize that, that doesn't mean you shouldn't carry on your path. It just means that, okay, if this doesn't work out, I've got other options. It's okay. It's not the end of the world.
That was awesome. That was like light bulbs. That's amazing. It's very true, but damn, you just put it so eloquently. So I one thing I want to talk about is the word stress, because I feel like there's negative connotations to the word, but there isn't. Like, can you talk about that and break it down? Because like there's good stress, there's different types of stress. But when you talk about stress management, what do you speak
I would
to?
say all. Okay, I was going to say all stress is good. Is good. Maybe that's a bit of an overstatement. Yeah, absolutely. Stress is fundamental to in our lives, and the easiest example is like when you want to build muscle. What do?
You stress the muscle.
You stress the muscle to the point where it literally tears them. You are breaking the muscle, and then you have the recovery phase where you become stronger. So stress is what leads to all of our growth. The key is not to avoid, like, isn't that stress is the problem. It's we need to control the stress, have like put ourselves through controlled stress, and then do the recovery. And it's the recovery that almost everybody just doesn't do these days. It's that
I
after you've
see.
had, if you're having an argument with somebody, it's stepping back and saying, what's the outcome that I actually want here, rather than just carrying on in the argument. So it just gets worse and worse and worse. It's reflecting on, okay, what happened here and how can I grow from this? It's having your protein after doing your muscles and having a rest.
Yeah, it's okay. It's the relationship. It's a two-parter.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Yeah,
stress and the recovery.
right. And stress, like if you think of a graph where on the bottom you have stress and on the sides you have performance, if you have zero stress in your life, you're sitting around doing absolutely nothing. So you need some level of stress in order to get you, like, we are designed by nature to conserve our energy. So you need a kick up the arse sometimes to go and do things. You need hunger. You need anger. Like, anger is such a powerful emotion that gets people to do things. And anger comes in when you don't listen to your own values or your own boundaries, and so your emotions take over and go, you're not doing a good job of protecting me here, so now we're going to take over. And the problem is then we become, sometimes we respond in a way that isn't productive to our long-term goals because our emotions are very short-term focused. It's like we just want security and comfort right now, and that causes us to do things that get us in a temporary state of comfort but at a cost. And so we associate those things with negativity, but actually they're there for a reason. And the problem is not the emotions, it's that we're not listening to them.
Okay. And you also have the fight or flight stress where like things click in where it's like you have a presentation or you have, well, that's also that type of stress. Is that different? Would that be good and bad? I mean, I know it's probably natural reaction of our
So
bodies.
I would define good and bad as, so go back to the graph a second. Sorry, as you see, you've
Yeah.
got no stress and you've got no performance. As stress starts to kick in, performance starts to go up. As you're like, the more stress is effectively stimulation, the more stimulated your mind is, the more like tuned into that fight or flight state you are, the more you're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's go. As that increases, your performance starts to increase. Then you hit this sort of the top of the curve where your stimulation meets your competence level. At the point at which the stress overtakes the competence and you start feeling, I don't have this, or you start feeling fatigued, you don't have the energy anymore, that's when it leads to burnout. That's when it leads to like overwhelm. That's when it starts to go downhill. So when it comes to performance, it's not like good or bad stress. It's just about keeping yourself stimulated at the right level for the activity that you're going to do. So for example, coffee we all, like, so many people love coffee. Coffee triggers the stress response. Coffee triggers the stress response. It gives you that get up and go. But if you
Yeah.
have a load of coffee and then you try and meditate, you're going to have a terrible time because your mind's going to be running a million miles an hour. It's going to want to do stuff, and you're trying to sit there and be still. But if you're about to go for a run, having a coffee might help you to get up and go off the sofa. So it's about having the right amount of stress for the activity that we're going to do and learning how to regulate that. Things that you can do to increase stress or decrease stress. But in terms of positive and negative stress, I would say negative stress is stress that comes from things that don't lead to growth. What does
Okay.
this like thinking about what does this person, the things that we can't control, or what does this person think of me, or so like,
Rumination.
yeah, like I'm hungry, that's a good stress. I'm good, it makes you go and eat, right? The simples. But now we've created an environment with so much comfort that when you take away the like people's big problems and people don't have something to focus on, the brain still has a negativity bias. It's still going to look for problems. That's its job if it doesn't have a focus. So when you take away the big focuses, people start to focus on things that don't matter, and they put themselves under too much stress, and then they burn out.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that because of how like based where people live, like in a bigger city, smaller city, there's a lot more external stressors that kind of lead to a disorientation?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any relation to that at all, do you think?
In a big city,
Or just big city versus small? Like I think if you were to look at how people lived 200 years ago versus now,
yeah,
there's a lot of like large noises, cars, concrete,
yeah,
less things where there's
yeah.
more things that could trigger stressors. Do you see a
So
correlation there?
yes and no. Yes, from a yes, there's lots of more things that can trigger stress. Things like noise. Our brain, once our brain becomes familiar with something, it no longer feels stressful. So if we're used to that's like some people who live in a city like the noise of cars and stuff in order to fall asleep because they're so used to it.
Yeah.
Once you become familiar with something, it no longer triggers that stress response because your nervous system knows I'm not in danger. So it only associates certain things with that. It does
Okay.
present a whole different set of problems in terms of yes, there's a load of stimulation, so your brain is having to work overtime to see, okay, what's am I safe? What's going on? It's like absolutely in that sense, it's causing more stress. And there's also the issue of you're surrounded by people that aren't in your tribe that could potentially be a threat to you, so you're going to
Mm.
feel less safe. But you could also feel that way if you're like the way that we've built society's gone. You can feel that way if you feel lonely, isolated anywhere. That's going to have a huge impact on your nervous system. It's one of the like leading causes of disease now is just like our nervous system shuts down when we feel lonely. Yeah, and they're saying now that like like loneliness is worse than smoking like a pack of cigarettes a day.
Okay. Hence why
Yeah,
COVID was such a thing. People
yeah,
were, yeah, that speaks volumes. So, talking about that performance graph going up, maintaining what you can, from your perspective, is that where managing your physical health, like sleep, comes in to manage the stressors, would you say?
100%.
Okay.
I mean, so like I like to bring up that like when you look at the special forces use sleep deprivation as a torture technique. I mean, if that doesn't say how harmful that is to your mental well-being, I don't know what else does. And I know Matthew Walker, who's like the sleep expert, has got one. I think that one of the most listened to TED talks on sleep has said that if you only get 4 hours sleep, you see a 70% drop in natural killer cells, which are what help fight off cancer and all of these other cells. Like sleep is so fundamental because it's when our brain defogs. It's so much of it's the only time of day in the world that we live in now where we actually shut everything off. Where because most people's idea
Mm.
of rest now is sit down and scroll through Instagram or watch TV and it's not rest. It's massively stimulating for the brain, and we sit in terrible postures where we're not getting good circulation, we're not breathing properly. So we're not. Our idea of rest now is not restful anymore. So sleep is the only time where we actually decompress, switch off. Our mind can sort out everything that's gone through it, it's gone through that day. It puts things into different it stores memories, cleans out itself, and all like that rejuvenation stuff starts happening, and
Yeah.
it rebuilds the immune system. And then I
Okay.
just think that basically the more energy you have, the more resilient you are to stress.
Right.
Yeah,
People talk about like stress, eating well, exercise, meditation, and I think for some that could be overwhelming. Like, where do I start? And to you, do you think sleep is probably your number one priority in all of those?
yes. I mean, we're like, yeah, yes, because the things that you do to improve your sleep, all of those things will help you feel less stressed throughout the day. So I focus on two areas when I'm working with people on the health side of things. One is optimizing sleep, and the other is how to sustain your energy throughout the day. Because through focusing on those two outcomes, you can cover everything that will help you to reduce stress and to perform optimally, to have the most, to help your body be as healthy and strong as possible.
Mm-hmm. Random question. I know we've kind of entered a phase where it's kind of the grind culture is really, you know, thrown. It's oh, you're grinding, and I think I can speak to myself directly. Like if I'm short on time and I have my laundry list of things to do, like I am a business owner. I do have I call it my muggle job. I am an athlete. The first things you do is you check off things from your own list. Well, I'll lose an hour of sleep to make up for it. Or I'll go for a run, but it won't be for the same purpose of what it's supposed to be for. So I think when we have this laundry list of things to do, the the action is I'm not going to cut from my to-do list. I'm going to cut from my personal list. It's actually going to help me with my to-do list the next day. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. It's just about priorities, and there are times when you do just have to suck it up and get on with it for a little bit. But make sure then what I would say is if you're going to put yourself through an extended period of stress, you then need to put in extended period of recovery afterwards. Like your balance between stress and recovery doesn't have to look the same for everyone. It doesn't have to be 9 to 5 I'm working and then the rest of the day I'm chilling. It can be 1 week on, 1 week off. It can be like this is where it's not there's not one shoe fits all. It's like everybody has to figure out something that works for them and their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And there are going to be periods where yeah, you have to push hard, in which case then you need to really enhance the recovery. And that's one of the things I look at is there are a lot of things that you can do to help speed up recovery. But yeah, it just comes down to priority. In the long run, it comes down to priorities, and you have to experience. Once you've experienced that, okay, if I continue to cut an hour's sleep, I wake up, I'm groggy, then I have a coffee, then my work just half the time I end up like 2/3 of my day is spent procrastinating. If you just felt good, the productivity would go through the roof because your effectiveness, the quality of your work increases, and that is
Mm-hmm.
so much more important than just being busy because it's
Yeah.
so easy to be busy these days. And we feel like
Yes.
a lot of people feel good about themselves, and they're like, "Oh, well, I don't think they feel good about themselves. I think it makes it easier to excuse their behavior to other people." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, but I was super busy." So, what have you actually got done? Because
Mm-hmm.
they've avoided the big things that scare them or the tasks that need doing in order to just check off emails or whatever.
Yeah. No, I've definitely experienced because I've noticed, and I'll speak for myself because I work on my side hustle in the it used to be the 5 to 8 and then the in the morning and then you do your run and so you're jam packed and there was no room for recovery. And so I've experienced even in this year like burnout where just like I have pushed myself way too far and I need to sit here and I need to recover and I need to be okay. And from your perspective, this is another random question. I'm just throwing curveballs at you. From your perspective, once you kind of recognize like, oh shit, I've burnt out a little bit. Do you, for folks who want to, correct the course and like, okay, I need to fill my cup back up, is sleep the best place to start? Like when we talk about stress and recovery, what to you exemplifies the perfect example or a good example of recovery?
Yeah, I mean, I guess sleep is so two things. Well, first of all, the first thing that came to me whilst you were saying all that is this is the biggest um, challenge. When the For me, what I've learned is consistency is so important. And when you burn out, when you don't look after yourself, you get sick, and then you take a week off. And momentum is so hard to create, but so easy to lose. And once you lose it,
Mm,
you can go. You lose so much time and can go so far off track, and it takes you forever to get back on track again. And some people quit in that period because
yeah.
something new exciting comes up and they get distracted or whatever. So for me, what I've learned is consistency is the most important thing. And the key to consistency is prioritizing your health. So it's like, yes, for a short period of time, you might be able to get more done if you don't, but you will not be consistent. So unless you have a specific deadline that you really have to push for, consistency, and you just have a big goal, you have a better chance of reaching that goal by taking small steps than trying to take big leaps, which might get you injured or hurt or make you mess up.
Yeah. So I have a lot of questions. I told you I have my notes here to keep me honest because I, I will ask so many questions. That was super helpful. So when I was kind of researching more about some of your work, you had a clip that was super impactful about setting deadlines and why it's important to see them through. So I, Hannah, have a goal to, work out 4 times this week or insert whichever. And you talk about in this clip, and I'll put it in the notes and of the podcast. So if you're listening and you want to watch it, you totally can. But you spoke so eloquently about why it's important to, when you set a deadline, to keep it. Can you speak to that a little bit for me?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that I've learned again through my journey is A, because it helps with consistency, but B, it's about your subconscious and the message that you're saying to your subconscious and how you see yourself.
Mm.
If you keep saying to yourself, I'm going to do this by the end of today, or I'm going to do this tomorrow, I'm going to wake up early and go to the gym, and you don't do it, and you keep saying these things to yourself and not doing them, you start to lose trust in yourself. And that is, how can you have confidence and believe in yourself and expect yourself to say, yeah, I'm going to do this and achieve it, if every time you say you're going to do something, you don't do it?
Yeah. Do you see, curious of your thoughts, like when people set a goal or a deadline and they don't see it through?
Mm-hmm.
Um, to me, that speaks of maybe not acknowledging the value of keeping your word for you as a human.
Yeah.
So when people tend to set a deadline or a goal for themselves and not see it through, what are some things they can acknowledge or recognize? Like, okay, this isn't working. Why am I not doing this for myself?
Again, one of the hardest things for achievers is humility.
Mm.
Recognizing if I keep setting myself this goal and not achieving it, it's because the goal is too hard. Even if the goal logically in your head shouldn't be that hard, if you can't get yourself to do it, you need to humble yourself and make the goal 10 times easier. You start small and build up. And that's the first thing that I would do with somebody is like, okay, if you're not achieving this, if you want to build, so something I'm doing with somebody recently who, broke down over not being able to sit down and read a book because they would just beat themselves up over you have to be productive or you should be doing things, and just couldn't give themselves the time. It was, to start with, we were like, okay, sit down and read for half an hour. They couldn't do that. So we brought it down to, okay, 1 page a morning, just 1 page. And that's like, as soon as you go half an hour, that, like, for somebody who needs to be busy, that feels like a lot of time. 1 page, okay, I can manage that. And then through that process, you start to build a habit. And then half the time you'll sit down and you'll get into it and you'll do more. But if there's a story in God, I think it's Atomic Habits, where he talks about the athlete, an Olympic athlete, whose goal to get to the gym every day was, or to do their workout every day was, just to get in the taxi, because they would get a taxi to the gym every morning. And the idea of doing a workout can be overwhelming. But she knew that if she got in the taxi and she got to the gym, it would all take care of itself. Once you start, it's, you just get into it. You know what you're doing. All of the resistance comes in the beginning. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I have a cold plunge outside that I do every morning. It's the days that I'm like, normally I'll do 3 to 5 minutes. The days when I really don't feel like doing it, I'm okay, just 30 seconds. That's all you got to do. And then half time when you're in there, you're like, okay, push. I'll keep going. But
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to, like, humble yourself and make it easy to start, because it's all about starting and then building momentum.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I learned from it was Mel Robbins' 5 4 3 2 1 book I listened to, because I think she's got some good insight. She was talking about when the day feels insane, just step out of bed, which speaks to what you were just like, simplify.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. It's because it like, if our brain feels overwhelmed, it creates panic. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all just about managing. It's really all just about managing our emotions and convincing ourselves it's going to be okay. And if you
Yeah.
can learn, that's where, if you can learn to manage the emotion, you can do anything.
Yeah. I love it. So another clip that I saw was you talking about, and I will again link this one too, because these were great on your Instagram, by the way. I was like scrolling through, just like fired up. I'm like, oh yeah, we got to talk about this and this and this. Um, one of the clips that you talk about, and I think it'd be super impactful for the listeners on, well, anyone, but specifically the listeners that listen to this podcast. It's more entrepreneurs and athlete based. was focusing on the process versus the outcome. And I was curious if you would be able to speak about it more here.
Absolutely. So I'm not entirely sure what I said on it, but here's why you should focus on the process and not the
Okay.
outcome. And it is all about control. When you don't feel in control, that monkey mind is going to take over. It is going to panic because the brain hates uncertainty, which is what's going on in America right now with the tariffs. It's like creating absolute turmoil, not because of what's going on, but because no one knows what to predict or what's going to happen. And people have said we would rather know the economy is going to get worse, which is crazy. You'd rather the economy got worse than not know what's going to happen. We cannot handle uncertainty because uncertainty brings with it danger. We don't know what's going to happen. It's why people stay in relationships that are harmful to them, is because even though they're in pain, they know that pain, they know how to manage it, they know how to handle it. They don't know what's on the other side. Same with jobs, same with anything. And so it really just comes down to most of the outcomes that we want in life, we cannot control. You can't control, whether somebody pays you. There's things that you can do to influence it, but there's always going to be things when you're running a race you can't control. There's things that you just can't control. So, again, to bring it back to Atomic Habits, he has this sort of like onion style thing of the 3 layers to like building a habit. The outside one, the most vulnerable, being the outcome, which if you have a really short-term goal, yes, you might just focus on the outcome because it's quick. But if you're trying to build a bigger habit, the next layer in is the actions or the habits that will build up to the result. So if you want to run a marathon, the outcome would be running the marathon. The habit would be getting up and running every day. And then one layer in from that, which is the biggest drive in our brains, is our identity. If you see yourself as a runner, you are going to go for a run. If you see yourself as something, you no longer have to try to force yourself to do that thing. You just will do it because the brain says, this is who I am. This is what I do.
Do you think there's also a level of freedom in understanding that within the process, I can control what I can control, like controlling the controllables, but the outcome as the best to your ability, you'll never be able to control the outcome. Like, for example, like I could run to use a marathon, which you talked about. Like I could train every day to run a marathon and I could go run a marathon. But there are things that are outside of my control on that race day. It could be hot as hell. It could be pouring rain. I could fall and eat shit. Like there are things that happen that you can't control. So do you feel like there's a sense and also a sense of freedom in understanding and controlling what you can and acknowledging that in the process versus hanging your hat on all the outcomes?
Absolutely. Bringing it back to what I said before of being able to just be okay with what is. I don't like when we attach ourselves to an outcome, when we tend to label it good or bad. And that tends to drive us. Who's the famous basketballer that died in a helicopter crash?
Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, he said something about a reporter asked him, are you the kind of champion who loves to win, or are you the kind of champion who hates to lose? And he said, neither. I'm the kind of person who loves to play the game because if I focus on winning, it makes me nervous. If I'm afraid of losing, then even when we're winning, I'm like, oh no, I have to hang on to this lead, and then I make mistakes because I'm afraid of losing the lead. When you're just playing to have fun, you have freedom to just take risks. We all play our best when we're
The flow
free.
state.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I forgot about, oh man, that was a rough year. That was a rough year in LA. We had the Kobe Bryant crash, we had COVID, we had a lot going on that front year. That was a rough. But yeah, if you ever go to LA, you'll see pictures of quotes of him all over the
Yeah.
city because he just is such an icon.
What I've heard of him is he's an incredible guy, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Because I feel like when you get to that level as an athlete, what differentiates you from, being great to being legendary is your mind. And I think that's where like someone such as yourself, it comes into play at some point. Cause it's like you push yourself in all of these facets, but sport and game, like in life, is such a mental is such a mental battle and adventure. If you are not in the right mental mind space, your potential will only be here.
Yeah, I
So
think that it's what separates the best from everybody else. Is like we all perform well when we're feeling good and everything's working. It's the people who everything can be going wrong and they can bounce back in no time because they can
yeah.
handle it. That most of us when we start falling apart we spiral because we haven't learned how to manage that. And
Hmm.
once you do learn, it's actually incredibly easy. Well, I wouldn't say easy, but simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For someone who's listening, and I feel like we all have these moments in life. Let's say it's something as like having to present at work, or you're nervous about race day, or nerves are the good, I guess the good or the bad, or a stressor pops up. Do you have any tips that you'd recommend, or any maybe a mantra or saying or mindset you'd recommend to kind of help navigate that stress for someone listening?
Um, so there's two things. Yes, there's things you can do in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
but the best thing that you can do is, and this comes down to not being focused on the outcome, but instead it's like, okay, I want to become the kind of person who can do this. Then every time becomes an experience, and it's just about exposure. The same as like how the brain hates uncertainty. So for me, when I was trying to overcome my fear of approaching people, I started off by every time I took my dog for a walk, the goal was just to look at everybody that I walked past. And initially, even that, if somebody didn't look at me back, would trigger like, oh, if I done something to make me feel uncomfortable, you just get so self conscious. And over time, that just disappeared. Most people look back at you, most people like smile. The ones that you don't, you realize it's got nothing to do with you. And I became comfortable with that. And then it was, okay, now every time somebody looks back, say hi. When I got comfortable with that, it was, okay, now just say a sentence. And then when I went to the sauna, I started trying to start like conversations in silence, which always feels awkward when everyone's just sitting around and it's quiet. Just start a conversation. It's
Yeah.
about, yeah, the confidence comes from overcoming challenges. And so you have to, if you're struggling with something, humble yourself, start really, really simple, and just stack wins on top of each other. Just set yourself challenges and just stack wins and prove to yourself that you're capable. And then
All
you'll
right.
believe in yourself. But in the moment, it comes down to uh, a self-awareness, to recognize the emotion when it's still small, so it's easy to handle. Because there gets to a point where, I don't know if you've read the Chimp Paradox, and
Mm-mm.
you definitely read that book.
Okay.
It's a really good way of splitting, like understanding the mind. But basically, there becomes a point where once the emotions take over, it's really hard to manage them because they're like once they're they're on. So we need to learn how to recognize. Oh, I can feel like I'm starting to feel something. Now, take a breath. The first thing I always go to is the breath. The breath is the fastest way to relax your nervous system. And there's this type of breathing called cyclic sighing that Andrew Huberman has talked about as being the
Mm.
fastest way to relax your nervous system, which is like a deep inhale, making sure you're inhaling through into the stomach, and then a sharp inhale into the chest, and then a slow exhale through the mouth. And it's really, if you can make that hissing sound as you're pushing the air out, that can help too. Like put your tongue against your top lip, the top of the mouth, and just make like and just push the
Okay.
exhale out. And as you're pushing, squeeze your stomach in to really get all the air out, and make sure that the exhale effectively. There's a very simple principle with all breathing techniques that to relax yourself, you want to elongate the exhale. So make sure that the exhale is longer than the inhale.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, my husband's a big fan of Andrew Huberman, so we hear. I
Yeah.
yes, that's great. Okay.
And then the second thing I would say, breathe and then focus on zoom out, because when we are emotional, our brain sort of narrows in and it hones in on the thing that we're emotional about. So just take a step back and look at the big picture. If you're in an argument, stop trying to win like, this is what I want the person to understand. Why don't they get it? I don't get it. Just step back. Okay, what do I actually want the outcome to look like here? What's
Mm.
like, okay, actually, I want this person to understand me more. Okay, is me shouting at this person going to help? No. Okay, so how can I go about it in a better way?
Okay. Zoom out, big picture. I like that. Yeah, that was super helpful. I kind of stumbled on that when I was one of the race dramas that happened was there was a huge fire in, um, not the recent one this past earlier this year, but in Big Bear later last year, and that was where a huge race I was going to have was going to take place. And for 4 weeks, I had no idea if this race was going to happen or not because it was just on fire. And I was driving to places. It was in altitude, and it was just doing what I could to control, but I could not control what's going to happen with this race. And I remember going on a run and I just broke down crying. It was a long run. I drove 2 hours to get there in altitude, trying to find something that was going to be similar to Big Bear. And I was just like, what is this for? I'm not even sure I'm going to race. And then I remember I told myself, I was like, okay, zoom out, Hannah. Okay, Hannah's going to go for a run. Like, that's all this is going to be. This is going to be Hannah's going to go for a run. So when you spoke about that, I was like, that's brilliant. It's super brilliant. That was great.
And what it was that made you emotional in that moment?
It was the uncertainty of pushing myself physically and there not being a race at the end of all of this effort.
So it was like, why am I doing this if I'm not going to race? Because the
What's
goal
the
wasn't
point?
to run, the goal was to get the medal.
Correct. Yep.
And then was there a race in the end?
So the yes, but I took matters into my own hands and signed up for what was going to be 100K. I signed up for a 24-hour race to get, because I also had a race cancel earlier. So it's going to be 0 for 2 on my races that year. And that was like, oh, come on. But my earlier race, I got canceled halfway through and then I finished it just from a training perspective. But with this one, I signed up for a 24-hour marathon and then did the race, or the 24-hour ultra and did the race.
Well, I mean, good for you for taking it into your own hands. The other thing that I would say is sometimes the emotion has nothing to do with what we're doing, and it could just be the fire. There's a lot of things going on, and actually, you're ignoring something that's causing you that you're struggling with by focusing on the running, and then we something happens that causes us to break down. I'm like, why am I having this reaction to this? And it's got nothing to do with that. The emotion is coming from something else, and it's just waiting to come. Like, it just needs an excuse to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes again, it comes down to not judging and just learning to sit with that's probably the most powerful thing that I have learned is just being able to sit with emotions and being able to sit with discomfort and not judging it, not going, I don't want to feel this, because that's when all the problems come. That's when the mind starts going nuts, when it goes, I don't want to feel this way. And so it tries to create quick ways to solve the emotion. Instead of, if you just sit with it, it will disappear in no time, and then you can get on with whatever it is you want to do. Or or teaching yourself. That's why I brought it down, like with the approaching people, teaching yourself, when this emotion comes up, it's okay, I'm going to do the thing anyway. And eventually you just become comfortable with the emotion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. Oh, geez. I do think there is a level of like, you hear the term running away, like, and how people have asked me, like, what are you running away from when I'm doing all these races? What are you running away from? And I think they're, not to call out any runners, I don't think everyone's like, I'll speak for myself here, but there is things I think we learned to run away from, because I'm sure there was something, probably work, where I needed to find something to validate, to prove that all of the effort of these 6 months of me in the mountains by myself, training, pushing myself, there was a payoff, and the payoff was that medal. And then I alluded to earlier, did the race.
So
Still
another,
Hannah.
sorry to interrupt you there. Yeah, another thing that people do is overcompensate in one area of life for something that they're lacking in another area.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're not happy and you're not having the success you want in your work, but you are in sport. It's very easy to double down on the sport, even though it won't get you to the outcome that you're actually trying to get to, because that makes you feel good about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh
it's
yeah,
the
I
same,
for sure do that.
and a lot of guys, for example, if they're not getting the significance that they need in their workplace, might then bring that home and be a bit of a dick to their partner in order to try and feel more significant in the relationship. And the partner might be like, well, what am I doing wrong? And it can have nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be that they're struggling with something else and they're projecting that on you. So yeah, what's one of the things that I like, there's kind of, I look at when I'm working with somebody, there's kind of, I don't just look at one area of life, it's what's going on in every aspect of life, because it all feeds into itself. We can't separate work, social life, relationships. It's all just life to our nervous system and our brain. It's all the same.
It's all life.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Woohoo. I've got some, I think maybe a good journaling session I gotta do there. But no, I think as well too, and there's a level of identity, and like you see a lot of people that are runners or entrepreneurs, there's a lot of identity in the outcomes. And so you are right, it's all one life. And so, wow, all right, having epiphany on this podcast.
Spill the beans.
No, it is all one life. It's one full circle. And I think you have I always talk about like my balloons. Like if I have a bouquet of balloons, I have one balloon like work. If work's super shitty, I'm going to go kill myself in this run to make up for those shitty work versus acknowledging work was really shitty. Let work be, bad, and then go enjoy this run rather than overcompensate. It takes away. Am I making sense? Like it takes away. Okay.
Because then when you overcompensate in the run, you're more likely to burn yourself. Like you then overstress yourself. You then feel fatigued. The next day you then have an even worse day at work because you're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the downward spiral of when you don't know how to ignore this stuff and manage it. It all goes downhill.
Yeah.
When you learn to like the basics of this stuff, it's just life changing. It's just it's all of the weight goes off your shoulders, and you can just enjoy things and fail and just have fun and do things for the sake of doing it rather than for the reward.
Yeah. Well, the process, not the outcome. You talked about.
And the ironic thing is, when that happens, you perform better.
Yes, that's so true. Like I've heard from so many coaches, or going back to sport, I guess is a great prime example. And they're like, when you're in your flow state, I want you in your flow state. And I'm like, okay, thanks. I'll try to and for those who don't know, like flow state is when you're not thinking, you're just responding, you're just acting, you're just being, you're just breathing, you're playing.
So to get into flow state, that's that on that graph, that's that peak of the perfect level of engagement. So your mind is because if your mind isn't engaged enough, it bounces around on lots of different things. So you can't force yourself to get into flow, but you can set yourself up to. And getting into flow is about having the perfect level of stress and stimulation to competence. Where being challenged, if the challenge is too hard, you go, I can't do this. If the challenge is boring, you're not engaged. So it's finding that perfect level of challenge to your level of stress. That's when you get into flow state.
Okay.
And then once you're in it, that is the peak, the pinnacle.
It's magic.
Yeah. And that state is incredible for your stress because it releases. It's like one of the only times that releases like so many of all of the good chemicals that we want, and your brain just is not bouncing around like crazy. It becomes super focused. It's just like focused on one thing, and your mind's just clear. You feel great.
Yeah.
And magic happens.
Magic happens. Oy vey. Okay, so I have one more question for you, and then we have rapid fire questions.
Shoot.
Okay, so my one question is what is one thing that if someone were to listen to this podcast episode that they should take away from? So we just talked about a whole bunch of stuff. If you had to, what's the one thing if you're like, yep, I heard Ollie and he said this? It's a toughie.
You are enough, and don't judge yourself. Just observe. Okay, when this happens, this is the outcome. When this happens, this is the outcome. Don't label it good or bad, because then it starts to condition you to want to become something or to run away from something. Just observe. You are enough. That's
Okay. Oh, I was not expecting you to say that. That was perfect. I needed to hear that today, so thank you.
You are enough.
Thank you, Ollie. So are you. All right. Rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Born ready. Go for it.
Good answer. Okay. Dream destination.
The next place on my bucket list is I want to go diving with whale sharks in the Philippines.
Holy shit. All right. Yeah. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm to Google whale shark because I already feel like sharks are huge, but there's whale
Oh,
sharks?
they're the biggest. Yeah, the biggest sharks, but they don't eat people or meat, or they don't eat fish. They eat plankton.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So
okay.
super gentle. You can go swim with them. Yeah.
Oh, they're gentle, gentle sharks. Got it.
Gentle giants. Yeah.
Okay, if you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be?
Ooh, there's a tricky one. I was always obsessed with. I don't know if you've heard of Travis Pastrana growing up. What he's done for extreme sports is just phenomenal. Like who he is, and then how he's built a business around like the business he's built is phenomenal. So I would love to sit down and have a chat with him. Also, I was thinking possibly like the founder of Red Bull. Also, what they've done is just incredible for extreme sports. So one of our
Mm.
entities now. So I guess Travis Pastrana.
Okay, good one. I love that. What's the scariest thing you've ever done?
Oh God.
You've done some pretty intense stuff.
Yeah, but this is the thing of so like I got really good at overcoming fear and pushing through pain in sport, but yeah, I couldn't approach somebody. So
Okay.
just like when we can there can be scary things, but that you can become really comfortable with, and that's why it's so important to push yourself out of your comfort zone, not just in sport if you're an athlete, but in the things that actually scare you. But I would say when I was 12, I did at the time, the world's highest bungee jump in South Africa. And I was absolutely bricking myself. And I would never have done it if I wasn't with my dad and my brother, who would have bullied me to no end if I didn't.
You
That's
were
where,
12?
yeah, I think you had to be 14 to do it. And my dad just lied on we just said, we'll just try, and lied on the sheet. So I may have a world record there, but I don't know. Don't know. Yeah, it was terrifying. Yeah.
Oh my God. So, I mean, when you talk about like, you doing big ice or big mountain skiing and all these sports, like your threshold at 12 was
Oh,
doing
yeah.
the
Yeah.
world's largest bungee. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I started young.
Holy crap. Yeah, you did.
I
Oh my God.
was definitely addicted to adrenaline. There's no doubt about that. Like I would get shaky if I didn't get a rush for a few days.
Oh my God. I've bungee jumped in LA. It was like the bridge to nowhere.
Okay.
I'll send you a video of when they pull me back up because I'm literally
Yeah.
like I
Oh,
can't even walk because I'm
yeah.
so like, oh
That,
God.
that's the worst part about it is it's so high that because a lot of the bungee jumps you go to the bottom and then they take you off at the bottom, but when they're that high they have to wind you back up, and you're just like you're there. You're just hanging there upside down with all the blood going into your head. Like, okay, this is really uncomfortable at this point. Just waiting for them to come rescue you.
Yeah, I would rather. Yeah, no. God, that's very impressive at 12. Good, my word. Holy shit, I would have crapped my pants. Okay, do you have a hidden talent?
Oh God. I like to sing in the shower, but I don't know if it's a talent or not. I sing when nobody's listening, and I have been told that I can sing, but I don't sing in front of people.
Okay,
That'd be like
that's
my
fair.
biggest fear is like being on a stage singing. I suppose I forced myself to go and do talks just to get over that fear, but to sing in front of people would be probably my biggest fear.
Okay, that's
Uh,
definitely a hidden talent for
uh,
sure. Okay, what is one thing you want listeners to know about you?
uh, that I still have to work at this stuff every day. It's like physical health. You don't just like go for one run and then you're fit for life. Like mental health is a constant work. There's constant challenges coming up, and it's just like physical fitness. It is a fitness, and you just have to do the recovery, do the right things for yourself. Constantly making sure, okay, am I the person that I want? Like, who do I want to be? What is it I'm trying to achieve long run? So I've got focus. It's a constant job, not job because that's the wrong. Like I think people have a negative association with that, but constant work.
Investment. Yeah,
Constant investment. There we go. That's a better. That's a
yeah.
better. Get a return.
I got you, Ollie. All good. Okay, last question. What are three things that you're grateful for?
I am grateful for you and having this podcast and the energy that you bring.
Thank you.
I am grateful for we've just had like almost a week of incredible sunshine. I had 4 days of surfing over the weekend. One of my friends came from uh, Madeira, which like a Portuguese friend who used to live with me and came stay with me for a few days. So that was really nice. So that's the second thing, and then the third thing is um, I am very grateful to have been born into a family and country that has allowed me opportunity. because I'm very aware that there are people who, well, we have the luxury of not knowing what we want. There are people who will never have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
As stressful as it can feel at times, there are people who every day is just a fight to survive. And yeah, so I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had.
Well, those were awesome. That's the podcast.
Amazing. Thank you
You
very
did.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me. That was so good. That was so good.
Glad.